Anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
We don't want to focus politics on a notion that involves the rejection of principles around which a large majority of our fellow citizens organize their lives.
We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think.
Search Inside Yourself is a curriculum on emotional intelligence. And you may ask, what is emotional intelligence? So the best answer to answer the question is with a parable. It's a parable of a man on the horse. So the man was just on the horse and he was just going along, and there's a guy on the street asking the guy on the horse, say, "Hey, rider, where are you going?" And the guy on the horse says, "I don't know, why are you asking me? You should be asking the horse, duh." Which sounds ridiculous. However, it is something we engage in every day. Because the horse here represents our emotional life, or our emotional mind, and the rider represents our thinking mind, our thinking self. Right? And we have this illusion that the horse controls the rider, that emotions control us. We have no control over our emotional life. Sometimes it gets worse. Sometimes it feels like this. Last parts of my life. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling hateful, you're feeling jealous, so on and so forth, right? It feels like this. So my friends, that's good news. The good news is that you can go from this to this. You can go from, with enough training, go from skilllessness with the horse to skillfulness with the horse. In other words, you can train emotional intelligence. Learn to at least influence where the horse goes. Right? The better news is that you can go from this to this. You can go from skilllessness to skillfulness and eventually mastery over your emotional life. So what is emotional intelligence? The standard definition is this: the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions, to discriminate among them, and most importantly, to use this information to guide one's thinking and actions. So that's a standard definition. There is another definition of EI, which I think is shorter and more powerful, in my opinion, which is that emotional intelligence is a collection of emotional skills. And that is important. Why? Because all skills are trainable. Therefore, if EI is just a collection of skills, emotional skills, then EI must be trainable. The good news is it's trainable. The better news is that it turns out from our experience that you can train emotional intelligence to a meaningful degree, to a degree that's life-changing for some people, in as little as 7 weeks. 20 hours of training. It turns out that EI cannot be learned. It can only be trained. The reason it can be trained is because of a feature of the brain called neuroplasticity, which is that what we think, what we do, and what we pay attention to changes the function and structure of the brain. There are a couple of neuroscientists, they were on an airplane, and they wanted to study neuroplasticity. And so they're talking loudly to themselves on the airplane. It's like, where can we find a population of people who does a specific thing, and the specific thing is something that we know what's the neural correlate, that where it happens in the brain, right? And we can study it. And as you're talking, somebody from the next seat, total stranger, says, London cabbies, right? Because in order to get a licensed driver cab, you need to take the test, right? To navigate all the streets in London in the head. And we know where that part of the brain, responsible for that is, the hippocampus. So the hippocampi of London cabbies were studied. And it turns out that they have bigger and more active hippocampi than normal people, and the longer they've been driving a cab, the more true that is. And that was the first evidence of neuroplasticity in adults. So how do you do this? How do you train emotional intelligence? You can do this in 3 easy steps. And step 1 is attention training. When I say attention, I'm talking about something fairly specific, which is the attentional ability to bring the mind to a state that's calm and clear mind, and to do that on demand. In other words, to calm the mind on demand. Bring the mind to this state, calm and clear. The first reason is important. is something that is described by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl says that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom and power to choose your response. And if you have the ability to calm the mind on demand, what happens? That space becomes reliably accessible. The space between stimulus and response. Therefore, what do you get? You get choice, power, freedom. Freedom, my friends, from this one simple skill. If you are a leader, this skill turns out to be a mark of leadership. So, for example, if you are in a meeting room of peers, right, and let's say there's a crisis, and everybody is panicking, and you alone, because of this skill, you alone can calm the mind as you're panicking, calm the mind and think clearly. And if you can do that, what happens? People look at you and say, Celia, she's always calm in crisis. And they feel she's a leader, right? And if in a company, next year's promotion cycle, guess who gets considered? You get considered if you have this skill. So this is an important leadership skill. And it gets better. This skill is also the foundation of all higher cognitive and emotional skills. So you train this, it prepares you for emotional intelligence. The way to do that is with a simple technique called mindfulness. Which is defined very simply as this, as paying attention, but not just paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. For 10 seconds, bring attention to the process of breathing, whatever that means to you. And if you need something more specific, attend to the sensation and notes as you breathe. And every time attention wanders away, bring it back. That's all. Every time your attention wanders away, you bring it back. It's like it's like doing one bicep curl for the mind. Like if you do, every time you bring attention back, it's like strengthening the neurological mechanisms that controls your attention. Specifically the prefrontal cortex.